Hello, Texas, and welcome to the Hello Texas podcast with Tim Murphy and Steve Peters. This week, Steve sits down with Texas artist Jarrod Birmingham to discuss the songs off his new album, The Short Go. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
When you left me right there on our street,
She was asking why I clapped in, so I can get everything together. Hello, Texas, and welcome to another Hello Texas podcast. I'm going to call this once in a lifetime because it pretty much is for me. I'm solo today. Tim is traveling this morning, and
I take offense to that. You're solo today.
Well, with my co-host.
I'm joking.
But I'm here with the incomparable Jarrod Birmingham. Who just came out with a new CD yesterday, The Short Go, which we're here just to talk about that. We'll talk about you some other time.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You pretty much, when you talk about my albums, you're talking about where I'm at.
Sure.
At that point in my life, so it's true.
Well, this one is unique. It came out yesterday. Listened to it 4 or 5 times already. You played a show here. We're at Shep's Barbecue in Belton, Texas. Thank you, Ronnie, for letting us use your place. You played a live show here for about 20 people, but streamed it out live and played the whole album start to finish.
I was surprised. We look at, Billy was excited about that.
Billy Joe High?
Billy, he's my longtime, he's my producer. He's my my daughter would say he's my BFF.
Yeah.
And he said, we've done 10 studio albums probably in these years, and we've never had a show just for an album. And he was like, man, that's kind of cool. We should have done that. I said, yeah, hindsight.
So we're going to talk about all of them today. Because when I listened to the album the first time, I had tons of questions, and we'll save opinions of the album that I have for the.
And I was excited about that. When you asked me, can we? I've got questions about the song. I'm like, oh God, that's as a I don't want to say an artist, but whatever it is that I do, it's. I tell people that I want to say that I'm a preacher, and you've seen me play a number of times, but not in a preacher in the way I'm talking about stuff that's happened to me, and I'm letting you listen. And when you're curious about those kind of things, it's like that's why I do it.
Oh, life stories. I heard 2 or 3 people last night after your show come up and give you a hug and say how similar they think their lives are to yours.
And to me, that's what this is all about. And that's my when I had a revelation from God about, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago. In a circumstance, we can talk about all that another time. But I'm meant to be in small rooms like this and have people say, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I can't tell you how special it is to sit in a room with you and listen to you just play music,
thank you.
Especially with your band.
Thank you.
Your band, and I will fight anyone. Your band is got more musicianship in it.
Yeah, they're good. I definitely good musicians. Everybody on that. The odd thing about this group of people, and I've had many bands throughout my years, except Billy's been with me pretty much the whole time. Every one of them can play every instrument on that stage, and I think that's what makes it special, because it's not just about them.
Right.
They understand what the guitar player's doing when he's playing the fiddle, and he understands what the fiddle's doing.
Well, your fiddle player, Andrew Wilson, and Billy Joe High on guitar, they work together better than any duo.
Well, they understand. Both of them can play the other instrument.
Yeah.
And it's I think that's real special.
Yeah. So we got a kick out of it last night, but let's talk about the album. Why did you make the album? First question.
Well, honestly, I don't want to get long-winded, but I had the title in my head over 20 years ago, The Short Go. If you're not familiar with rodeo vernacular, the short go is the final go round. It's a slang term. Short go round. It's the finals of the whole rodeo. Usually a rodeo will go 2 or 3 days, and then the top 12 or 15 will come back, and they're the finals. So I had this in my head. I pitched it to a number of record companies, and nobody was interested. And I'm to a point now in my life that I'm not as concerned about radio. It's just not a big deal for me. And I said, we're going to put this rodeo album out. But it's probably a good thing, because had I done that first, I probably would have been pigeonholed as someone who wanted to be Chris Ledoux, or because the similarities were so. I was rodeoing. I was a cowboy. Everything.
Bronx and
Bulls. And the Chris Ledoux, everything was a parallel. And had I had done that, and the first song I ever wrote was a cowboy song, verse 2. And had I done that, I think it would have been, here's this Chris Ledoux wannabe. And he was like a god to me, and I did not want to. So I shied away from it, and I ran and had the hair to here, and my whole band. Oh yeah, we ran with it. I ran with my grandpa passed away right about that time, and before that, if he saw me without an untucked shirt or something, and when he passed away, I ran with it, and so we came back, and I could have written a song full of 12 rodeo songs,
right?
But I didn't on purpose, because I wanted this particular group on here.
It's a tribute to when we say country and western, this is the western of country and western. You sing country, but this is the western part of it. Most of them. There's some others on here as well, but we'll talk about what I like about it is that it's not a cover. I'm going to say that a few times, that you covered this song. You didn't. You put your own spin on all 13 of these songs,
as much as I could.
And what I like about it is what it isn't, which you could have really easily gone to the biggest hits of every. Yeah. You could have done a George Strait Amarillo by Morning or something like that, and
easy. And I thought about it.
It probably would have sold a whole lot more. Sure. But this is so much more meaningful, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because there's some decisions you made on some songs that
actually, when we cut this, we cut a number of songs, and I did cut a solo acoustic of me doing Amarillo by Morning, because Chris cut that too.
Yeah.
And but I did not want to go anywhere near the national anthem of Texas, which is Amarillo by Morning. Right. And had I went there, it would have been just a copy of Amarillo by Morning. So but then once I got them all together, I did not. I skipped right past all that, and I said, "This is the group that I want."
Who made the decisions for the songs? Was it you? Was it everybody? But you?
It was me. Ultimately, it was me.
Right.
I can't sing anything that I don't believe.
Right, and we'll get into that. There's
if I don't believe it, I can't. I think that is the most what people miss, especially these days with the big turn your chair around shows and all that. Having a voice is cool, but believing you is. I mean, you tell me Bob Dylan or Willie Nelson or would they have had their chairs turned, or Mick Jagger, would they have had their chairs turned around? Probably not. Yeah. But look at them; they're icons, and because you believe them, so I have
connect
to
the person to the words.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
Have to believe.
So,
heroes have always been cowboys, still on the scene.
First song on the album is "My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys." It's probably the most recognizable song of all of them on the album by far.
On purpose.
It was recorded by Waylon Jennings, I think, in '76, and then Willie did it a couple years later.
Written by
I got it. Sharon Vaughn.
Sharon Vaughn.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. And what's the cool thing about it? And you said 1976. After the single came out, I had a message on Facebook from a guy. It was like, oh, that is so cool, because Sharon Vaughn was a backup singer. Mm-hmm. I don't remember who she was a backup singer for. And he said she kept pushing these songs when they were recording with another artist, and everybody kind of laughed. And then like 6 months later, Waylon cut it, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, I should have done it." The reason I said that is I was surprised. I've known that song my whole life.
I was too.
And I put it off is that's a Ed Bruce song.
Yeah.
Because the rest of them.
We'll talk about him in a little bit.
Yeah, but the rest of them are like that.
Right.
It's mamas don't let your babies, or this is the it fits right there. And then you see that Sharon Vaughn wrote it, and what's so weird about it is picking up hookers instead of my pen. And I was like, wow, it's cool when somebody puts themselves into a situation right. And that's what she did. She plugged herself in. And by far the most memorable, and I did it on purpose, because when I cut a record, I start with what, if you were to read, which is another lost art. I still do that. I read.
Just flip to the end to see which goes back to your main theme song of all time.
So you always have the foreword, and it kind of explains the book.
That's what this is. Yeah.
To me, my heroes have always been cowboys. Was the foreword to this album, and
it's a statement for all the songs you're going to hear.
And I did, and I did it. I always do something really strange on albums, and it's very obscure, but there's always something that's weird about every album. Like on The Dancers, I had a rap kick drum in the mix, and there a number of times I've done that. On this one, in the techno world, they do a lot of rap world. They do a lot of mixing of songs. They'll do, they'll rap over the back of Aerosmith, and stuff like that.
Samples.
So what I did, I'm thinking, my heroes have always been cowboys. What is the most noticeable cowboy song that I know when I think play me a cowboy song is Red River Valley? And so I took Red River Valley and I put my heroes have always been cowboys over the top of it.
Really?
One stepping back of themselves and that slow moving dream.
Really?
Like a like you would do in another world, and I that's just what I wanted to do.
I was going to say it's a ballsy choice to put this song first, because it's so recognizable that somebody could listen to it and go, no, but you filled those shoes.
And if they do, that album's probably not for them.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
The very first note of Andrew Wilson's fiddle playing in the distance, it almost feels like, and then you come in with the echoey.
It's a campfire.
And it's kind of a slowed down version of it. It just hit the mark. So if you like that song, you're going to like everything else that comes after it, because it's a tribute. It all falls back to that one.
That was my foreword.
And then we'll get to your conclusion, which I think is for how this tells a story. The first and last songs need to be listened first and last.
That's how I record.
So it's just a great version of a great country song.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed making it, and I enjoyed singing it. It's still one of those things that as many times as you have heard it, it's not like what you heard.
Right.
And usually it takes. You'll notice people when I play it live. Usually it takes them about 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Like you grew up a dream and being a cat, and they're like, I know what it is.
I normally come to
Well, I'm a going and a blowing and a heading down the road, and I'm trying to make a living rodeoing. I've been driving all night, the pale moonlight, waiting for the sun to start showing.
Goin' and Blowin' by Chris Ledoux.
Yes.
This
is chapter 1.
You have several chapters of Chris Ledoux on here, and you mentioned you didn't want to be him, but it's hard to do this type of album without. You could have made
all of them,
all Chris Ledoux songs,
Easy.
and it would have been great.
Easy.
Why Goin' and Blowin'?
Again, that was my first chapter, and when I think of my rodeo days, I'm not saying that now everything evolves. Everything evolves, and rodeo is a great evolution right now. There's a lot of money in it. But when I did it, and what I can remember is a bunch of people piling in, a bunch of people piling in to the whatever car had the biggest trunk, and you're driving, and we didn't have. Everybody had an atlas. Where are we going? E24. That's where we're going.
Kids just don't understand that.
E24. So to me, this song, everybody had in my little group. Everybody had like T-Bone when he'd get tired of driving, he'd get out and run around the car.
You have a friend named T-Bone.
Yeah, I do. and Steve, what he would do was jump out and do push-ups when he got sleepy, and it was his turn to drive. I pulled nose hairs. I don't know. I know it sounds weird,
No, I get it.
but you want to wake up.
You do whatever you have to do.
Yeah, I'm up. So this song to me was like the first chapter of rodeo. To me, was 0 to 90.
Yeah,
That's what it was, and I think this song, and I really, again, I said before, this album, I really I was going to do all duets at first.
Right.
I was going to go Willie Nelson on you. Can you imagine this one? I wanted Corb Lund, and we talked. Corb and I were and
that'd have been cool.
Perfect choice for this. This song, and this is another reason why I put it on there. Is like, well, Corb would. This is a funny guy's going, hallucinating from being sleepy and drinking coffee in Copenhagen.
Right.
And this was my introduction to rodeo life.
Now, what I like about the song is the original was released in '75 on the Songbook of the American West. It sounds like 1975 music. Mm-hmm. Yours sounds like it's not. You didn't change it, but it sounds like a contemporary, updated, 2020 version of the same. Andrew
story. Really took that and it almost gave it like a Cajun feel.
Yep.
I broke it a little bit when Chris didn't. I felt it. I wanted a big, well, I'm a going and a blowing and a heading down the road. And I had what I wanted to hear out of it. Not that I could make it any better. But like you said, it's hard for me not to sound like Chris anyway.
Sure.
And so I don't want to stray far from what he
There's
did.
No mistaking that he is a huge influence on your music.
No doubt.
Even in other songs that you're not doing, Chris Ledoux, the cowboy poetry is what.
No doubt.
On this particular song, it's that high-pitched, fast fiddle playing
that made it for me.
Yeah,
it was when he did that on it, I was just it was just went on with it.
All right, we're gonna take a quick.
What I'm trying to say is for the rest of my day, I miss the pretty girl riding the bay.
Girl on the Bay. And for people that don't know rodeo or Western, why did you write a song about a girl on the water? Or why did you sing a song about a girl on the water?
You don't know how many times I've gotten that.
I'm sure
especially where I'm from. You get in Corpus Christi and people take it as Corpus Christi Bay.
Right.
I'm all of a sudden I'm singing Corpus Christi Bay. Man, I love the song. The reason the whole album waited is I had this big video coming out, a big video that we put a lot of effort into. We had the Goliad County Fair, we had the actors, film crews had already flown in.
Wow.
Everything.
I'm guessing this was about March 16th or so?
Yes, it was, exactly. The Goliad Rodeo starts on the 17th and ran through the 21st.
How did I know?
And they flew in. We had this whole, I had a rodeo clown, bullfighter, world renowned, the whole thing was set up. And the video is going to be released before the album. Because I care about videos. I don't, the radio plays here or there, but videos were important. COVID shut the whole rodeo down. It was right during the Houston rodeo.
Right.
And so I got disappointed and said, well, we'll just do it again in May when the Corpus rodeo's here. And you know the rest of that story. It just went on. I love this song. This was it. It was one that I know nobody ever heard unless you had the Ed Burleson live CD.
Right.
Then you heard it.
And I had questions about that because I've known Ed Burleson's name since 2000 when I started listening to this type of music, but I've never really connected with him. I just knew that he was one of the, you call it a founder,
Yeah,
one of the first guys. Talk about your relationship with Ed Burleson, because y'all have really similar stories.
Yeah.
And once I dug into him, I realized that he could sing duets with you on every one of these songs.
I don't know why, but with this song, I just loved it, and I knew if I was going to release a single off this album, I wanted it to be this because it had never been heard. And the song was so good, such a story song, real strange. It drops, references to Navajo Rug and Jerry Jeff, which just passed away, and Ed was such a big influence in the scene that people know. And I don't want to go deep into that because it'll look like I'm finger pointing. And I'm not.
Right. No,
I'm really not.
Understand.
I'm not at all. But you have no idea how big an influence he was to all of the people that are really considered like the fathers of the modern Texas.
The songwriting, the themes, the stories.
Yeah. Ed was doing it, and we missed each other because I'd started trying to sing and wasn't rodeoing when then Ed was rodeoing, and I was trying to sing, but I was singing all cover songs because in the late 80s, early 90s, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And I got fired from every band because I could not be
Vince Gill.
I could not be Vince Gill. I could not, I couldn't sing like those people. And so I got frustrated and started, I'm going back to rodeo and yada yada. And Ed moved out and started writing his own songs. I didn't even know you could do that. It's like it was like awesome.
I went back and listened to My Perfect World that he did in '99, and you got to kind of take your back to that time. That was when right before Pat Green and all of the bigger artists were coming up, and you're right, he was doing it before anybody else was.
And Clay Blaker and Doug Sahm and just everybody clung to him. Chris Wall.
And he has some Jim Lauderdale songs.
Yes,
and
they're very good friends. And that's the thing. All these people, I kind of, if you would look at it now, you know how Ryan Bingham kind of got picked up by a certain like Dylan and that's what Ed was doing here.
Yeah.
In that age. And so when I wanted to do a single, if there was ever going to be a single to radio off of this, I said, this is the one I want, because it's Cowboy. And Ed is I looked at an old album, thank yous, that someone had posted on Facebook this morning. Georges Carrier from huge in France and putting on festivals, and he was, look, I made the liners of this CD and I read the liners. I called Ed my hero on the big album that I released out of Nashville. Even in the liners then, Ed Burleson, my hero.
Really?
And I've never hit it.
He's my age. He's 51. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's not one of these old classic ones. He was doing it when
he was
a
doing
kid.
it when he was young.
Yeah.
And I love him to death. And
How'd y'all meet?
with the rodeo world, again, my best friend, Brian Herman, multiple NFR, PBR qualifier, best friend since I was 8. Rodeo together. We were brother-in-laws at one time, yada, yada. Yeah, that's a whole other story.
That's a cowboy story for one.
At one time. And Ed lived together in college and rodeoed together in college, and I've known Ed, since that time, and just long before when I realized he was writing music, I was, man, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and write. I knew there were writers. I obviously, there's writers.
Sure.
But you think, well, there are these special group of people that sit in Nashville and can only, because that's what they want you to believe.
And you mentioned earlier that it's good to have a voice, but if you don't believe it, there's nothing I enjoy more than hearing somebody sing their own songs.
Yeah, Bruce Robinson.
He's the reason I'm here.
Yeah,
he was my first.
When you hear other people singing songs, it's cool.
Right.
But
Right.
to hear Bruce sing them, that's what I think it ought to be about. And I didn't realize that I could be that guy until Ed did it. And then there's a lot more out there like me that
Oh yeah, it's cool that there's so much art out there, and I always tell people there's better talent singing on your corner in your local town than there is anything on the radio.
Well, here's what I equate it to, and I don't want to get too far into that, but the thing about it is, if I ask you what your favorite hamburger was, you're going to have a place in your hometown.
Crows right down there.
Okay,
So-
and you're going to say, that is the best hamburger in the world. Okay, is it the most popular hamburger in the world? No, I've never eaten that one. I've had a Big Mac, so have you, so has people in China, and so I think at some point, you got to realize, are you a Big Mac or are you Crows? And Ed was definitely a Crows.
Yeah.
Bandito Gold. Think of all the outlaw bands we have captured single-handed in our mind.
Song number 4 on the album, Bandito Gold. And I heard you say it last night, and I was going to ask you, Red Steagall song.
I had 2 in mind.
What was the other one?
Well, I could have done 4 or 5.
Yeah,
and
when we talk about cowboy poetry,
yes,
Red Steagall is the
he's quintessential
he's the
living
official,
legend.
He's the official cowboy poet
Yeah,
of Texas.
he
He
is.
is the man.
He is. And I couldn't do a cowboy album without putting a Red Steagall song.
Agreed.
I was going to cut Dawson Legate kind of because it goes back to the Ian Tyson Cowboy Canada. If he is the Red Steagall of Canada, and crossed it and this and that, but I remember being in the TYRA, the Texas Youth Rodeo Association, when they used to play the old songs over the speakers before the rodeo, and Bandito Gold was the one that I knew the words to it without even ever
Learning
thinking
it,
that I did.
just
And,
absorbing it. And
So naturally to me, then if I'm that familiar with it, it must have done something to me. And I like horses. I like horse songs, and it was just a plain Red Steagle. And I hope I did Red justice as well.
Have you talked to him about it?
No, I haven't.
We're gonna. That was one of my questions. Is I know he's still around.
Oh yeah. No, I haven't yet. And my first fiddle player toured with Red for when he was 16, 17. He was a little prodigy, and he's since passed away. And that was another reason that I was drawn to Red back through Wade. It just kind of it was a no-brainer for me.
Well, this one sounds like a song that you could have written.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really fitting that you included.
And I'll tell you always my litmus test to whether I can sing it or not is if I can hear, and now it's going to really mess with your head when you listen to some of these, if I could hear, obviously, Chris do it, Merle Haggard do it, or Waylon Jennings do it. And if I could hear them do this song in my head, then I can sing it. And if you listen to Bandito Gold, to me, it sounds more like what Waylon would have done.
You may have just changed the way I listen to music from now on.
It would have. Let's say he put that song on Honky Tonk Heroes, the Billy Joe Shaver, all the Cowboy songs. I think Waylon would have done something like that, and that's how I approached that song.
Gold belt buckle. Head south to a California rodeo. Just rolling down that great American highway, with the morning sky lit up like a flame. Chasing dreams, following a rainbow, like children running through the rain.
Number 2 song by Chris Ledoux, "Running Through the Rain."
My favorite upbeat Chris Ledoux song, and a tribute to those guys I spoke of earlier. I Brian Herman, Kenneth Custer, T-Bone, Stephen Davis, John Herron, all the people that I've been Crab, all the people that I rodeoed with, heavy. And I know I missed somebody. I know I missed a lot of people, but again, this is the 3 of us or 4 of us slammed into a Oldsmobile with a big trunk, eating cold, dry hamburgers, rodeoing, and then texting each other now saying, "Man, did you watch the NFR last night? Yeah, I sure do miss you." And that's what this song is.
Trying to find an old Bill Cutlass to go pick him up.
It's my favorite, and I happen to be friends with, it says there's Witch over at the beer. I know Witch's nephew, and just the whole thing is to me. And it's funny now when I read on social media, everybody's like, "I can't believe he cut Running Through the Rain. That is my favorite Chris Ledoux song." I had no idea that so many people had the same feeling I did.
It's a great example of a Chris Ledoux song. I mean, if it's the only one you hear, this is what Chris Ledoux sounds like. And what he did is change that cowboy poetry that Red Steagle had into more of a cowboy rap.
Yeah.
He updated it and kept it going in the 80s.
I never
90s.
thought about that, but that you're right. And to me, if I think there's a couple of Chris Ledoux songs that I would that would be one of my top. That is Chris Ledoux. That's what he sounds like.
It just, of all the songs, even some of his hits, I think this is a better example of a Chris Ledoux than some of his hits.
Yeah.
Because he's got a huge body of work from.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I took a comical shot at Garth last night with the Chris, and it is completely comical because I love Garth Brooks. I don't care what anybody says. It was a joke about. I've always joked about I knew who Chris was before Garth found his worn out tape with Chris Ledoux. It's just a joke.
Right.
And
To be
there
honest,
was not a man alive that did not care for or push Chris any more than Garth did. He told you,
No,
I stole
Right.
my show I stole Chris's show.
Right, he did.
And,
He is.
and when Chris, people don't know, when Chris was had problems with, Garth was trying to give him his
Really?
kidney, and there's no, I have no, it's just it's a funny joke.
There's nobody that supports songwriters in
Yeah.
the world, I think, more than Garth Brooks.
Yeah, it was a funny joke, and
No,
it's
I think
it's
Garth
always
would laugh at it.
Yeah, because I always say I was singing this song before Garth found his worn out tape of Chris Ledoux.
Well, let's do one.
Ride on high, your rodeo bum. It's a long, dusty road, but your day's bound to come. Ride on high.
Album, Rodeo Bum. Another.
a good one to
Several
take.
waltzes on here.
Yeah,
That
well, that's cowboy music.
there's nothing better than a Jarrod Birmingham singing a waltz.
That's a cowboy music. I'm very comfortable with waltzes and halftimes, and
This is the duet that you have with Ed Burleson.
this was the first one I recorded, and I said, other than my wife, I'm done.
On the album. This was the first time I stopped and went, "Whoa, this is really, really." I mean, everything's good, but this is the one
Yeah.
that made me stop and.
You know, and I've had a lot of people text me, musicians, and it's like, my God, you captured that old sound with this song, and it sounds like it's right out of the 70s, and I'm like, we did, and again, that's Andrew and Billy.
It sounds like a George Jones song, and I had to go look, and it's done by Mel Street, and I bet a whole lot of people don't know who Mel Street is.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, and he died in '78, I think, which is why kind of his songs are kind of on the back burner. But he had a bunch of hits,
A bunch of them.
and
You're right.
I knew "Borrowed Angel" was the one that
Yeah.
I had heard before.
Yeah.
But when he died, George Jones played at his funeral. I don't know if you knew that. I went back and looked. So he was friends with George Jones. That was his influence. So you can hear the George Jones in his song, which when y'all sang it, I was like, well, this has got to be a George Jones song, right? And
Well, that's a good. Yeah, that's how music works.
yeah,
Yeah,
all
I
the
think
influences
you
trickle
ingest
in.
whatever you ingest is what you're made of. You are what you eat.
So have you done a duet with Ed before?
Never. And we've talked about it, and every album I've talked about it. It's just hard to get together. But this song, I did not know that someone else wrote it. Ed had this on his very first cassette that he
Really?
from live at Two Teardrops, which was the place in Dallas back then, and this song was on there. And so all the
great
people,
song, by the way.
all the people that know Ed, that are familiar, this was another thing of me saying, look, he's really one of my heroes. It's because it was immediately, all those people that have known Ed since the early 90s will say, Rodeo Bum. And there was no better way. This was a no-brainer for me on this album. Probably one of the first songs I said I was going to cut.
Really?
And with Ed on it. I wouldn't have cut it without Ed on it.
It's just a brilliant song to put on here, just for
And he's lived a life too.
Right.
And you know.
for him and y'all doing it together, and the story that it tells at this
Yeah.
point in the album, right in the middle.
Yeah.
It just hits the mark.
That's where it was for me.
And I went around last night and asked a lot of people what their favorite song was on the album, especially your wife and your bandmates and
Yeah.
all that. And a few of them said Rodeo
Oh
Bum.
yeah. My wife will tell you straight up.
yeah.
That's her. That's Jen will tell you immediately that song. I think she can feel the happy. She knows me, and she can feel the happiness and kind of the. I don't want to say closure because it's neither of us are done, but it was like me making full circle back with someone that I looked up to musically, and also that I know how to go to war with
Right.
as a cowboy, he's a bareback rider and bull rider, and I know what he's made of, and he knows what I'm made of, and not to say that other people aren't, but I just understand him completely, and it's probably my favorite song on the album as well.
Really?
Well,
I got you.
musically, musically.
Let's take a quick.
17 Cowboys dream ain't all fixin' fancy. Once he seen them ride, no shame.
We're on song number 7, which is 17. The moment I heard you sing the first line, I said, "This is your favorite song."
Yeah.
I mean, and I knew that listening to you sing it.
Yeah.
And then I heard you last night say that this is your favorite song
Of all time. Favorite song of all time. Not again, I'll say it, it's like a lot of times when somebody asks you a favorite song, I can't pinpoint another one. I have a bunch, and it all depends on my mood.
Everything is my favorite in the moment.
Right. It's like your last kid,
Right.
whatever is in your not saying last kid's your favorite. I'm saying
River's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's cool. But if you asked me if there was one song, it's this one. It's 17. And I was surprised Ned Ledoux, Chris's son. We've become friends. I've become friends with all of his old band and bandmates, and they were shocked that I rolled up my sleeve, and I don't do it here.
He's
but
got a tattoo.
I got a big 17 tattoo, and it's a kind of a special moment. And Ned was like, "Oh my God, how did a kid from?" He was kind of taken back because how did a kid from South Texas become that enthralled with a Wyoming cowboy and know some of those old ones, and that song be that special? And I said there's so many things about the song, and I still get goosebumps. I hope cutting it doesn't kill that.
I don't think it will. I watched you sing it last night, and you had a hard time starting it. I mean, you knew it was a big moment, and
well, it is. And I sent, before I put, this song means so much to me. Before I put it on the album, I sent it to KW, which is Chris's old drummer and best friend, KW Turnbow, and I said, "Is this worthy?" And he texted me back. I kind of got nervous because it took about 5-6 minutes. It seemed like a lifetime. It's pretty quick.
calling his lawyers. What's going on?
No. And he goes, "My God, Chris would be so proud." He said, he said, "I loved what you did with the music is exactly the same, but there's a lot of twin parts, and it's really yours, and you, I love it." And I was, and Chris Wall told me the same thing, about it, and just Chris would be very proud. And when they tell you that, I don't, you take this, I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
it's done.
That's what this is.
I had their approval and of my favorite song, and but again, the song, what's so cool about it to me is it talks about the American cowboy way of life and how it's handed down and
it's a conversation.
The sweet voice of freedom.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what I remember about rodeo. But there's a second side to this song. To me, I don't know if Chris intended it that way, or if anybody else sees it, but to have the appreciation of a father, and when you picture these two ranch kid with his dad, he's probably a pretty hard man, and the kid is looking up to his father early in this song, which that's kind of what we do. to have the appreciation at the moment, and you know the dad probably told the kid, "Oh, you're living in a pipe dream. You be a cowboy. You stay here at the ranch, and you work, and you earn your keep." And yada. I can't even imagine, because maybe I'm putting way too much of myself in it. But at the point where he gains his dad's appreciation and the pat on the back, and you watch it over and over, the Lane Frost story, 8 seconds, you know, it's almost exactly that. And when he says, his old man just shook his hand and said, "Son, go ride him pretty." And I got goosebumps then.
This old man, he just shook his hand. Said, "Son, you ride 'em pretty. Never seen the tears that Mama cried. Mama cried."
That's, to me, like, what's strange about that is this is tattoo is 17. This side is the prodigal son, the story. And to me, it is the same thing.
Yeah.
And I love the song. I means the world to me. And some people say, well, then why did you put it right in the middle?
That's a question I had.
It's because it's like a transitional in that story of the cowboy. You go on to these next ones, and he's a grown up, you know.
Yeah, I see that.
But this is his big moment, you know. This in this Cowboys thing, when we get to this part of the story, this is the meat. This is what takes him to that next level, is his dad's appreciation, and a father's. You have no clue how much it is to put that blessing on a kid like that. And so to me, it's just like the Bible of all songs to me.
Right.
And I love it. I've been playing it for a long time. And it was, I would have put it on an album had I not put it on this one.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
I would have.
This is the perfect spot,
But I think it would have been missed, because when you throw that on a song, on an album, with "That's What Dancers Do," and people are drawn, you know, and not everybody, but the majority of people are going to be drawn to the quirky, funny. They want to laugh.
They want the bumper sticker.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
I got it. Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that either, but it's. I think that would have been completely missed.
Yeah.
But in this, being in the meat of it,
this is a whole story, and this is that chapter where you go back and read it a second time.
Yeah, I think he's grown up. He's had the girlfriend and lost her, and to me, it's still me. I think maybe I put everything in my situation. You're rodeoing, you know, with you had the horses with your dad, and then you're rodeoing, you want to be this rodeo bum, and the next one, your dad puts the blessing on you. And from that point, you know, Katie barred the door. It's done.
As Running Through the Rain was a great example of a Chris Ledoux song, I think this is the best example of the genre of music that you put on this album.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
If
Because that's what it should be.
If you were going to showcase what this album's about, My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys is a good way to start, but this is where we got to. This is the climax of the story.
That's the mean of it.
Yeah. So.
From that point, it's all what else happens to the kid.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe I put myself way too much into it.
That's what we're supposed to.
But
that's what makes this a great song. Is
well,
we all put ourselves.
That's
in
where
that.
I'm at. That's where I'm at with it. That will, until the day that I die, I hope that is my favorite song.
Yeah, I get that.
I finally made it to the top of the world. Warm up the Cadillac, call on the girls. I'll be the envy of all the top hate. Thank God Almighty, I'm a rodeo man.
Rodeo Man.
Yep.
Now, when I looked at the album and saw the songwriter on here, it's by you have Chris Ledoux from Wyoming.
Yeah.
You've got this guy from a cowboy from Idaho.
Yeah.
Now, how in the world does a Texas person know anything about Idaho? It's because it's Muzzy Braun, and if you don't know the Braun name, it's entrenched in Texas music.
It's twofold.
Yeah.
If I would say Braun,
I've got 4 names.
Yeah.
That come to it's Cody, Willie, Gary, and Mickey the Motor Cars. Reckless
which is
Kelly and Mickey
it's
the Motor
like
Cars.
there's your father of Texas.
Which goes to one of the themes here when we talk about Mel Street and the Bronze. Is I think Reckless Kelly and Mickey and the Motor Cars are some of the most underrated bands in Texas.
By far.
I put you as why aren't you on the radio 100% of the time with Reckless Kelly, Mickey, all these people that you.
I think I can speak for them and say you don't know, and it's. I'm not saying at some point it doesn't bother you, but then you get past it and you realize that's not why you played music to begin with.
Right.
And when you get to that, it's okay. They are crows,
Yeah.
They are. And Muzzy, the daddy, the you talk about, he was huge, and he still is. The name and that Idaho, that Northwest right there. They would be surprised that you didn't know who Muzzy Braun was.
Now he toured and raised his kids as a touring group, and this
they were the Partridge Family, Cowboy Partridge Family, right there. Yeah.
So I mean, one of the Reckless Kelly songs, the Ragged Road, talks about I hit 1,000,000 miles before I was 13 or whatever the line is on there.
The funny part about it is, I'll be completely honest. I went to the giant Google platform to find a song called Rodeo Man. Turns out there's about 150. And this was not the original one that I was looking for. Straight, I'd never heard it. But I was so, obviously, I saw Muzzy Braun. Mm-hmm. Then I'm like, shoot, I got to hear this, And again, it wasn't the one I was looking for. I'm glad I didn't find it because I'm glad I found it. I think God led me to that. And so I listened to it, and I'm like, I know this guy because I've said it time and time again. To be a rodeo cowboy, you got to have a little bit of cockiness. Not arrogance, cockiness, and it comes across, and you can make fun of yourself. And if you were going to kind of make fun of yourself as being cocky, that's this song. So I was like, oh, that's really funny. I make a joke. I tuck my pants in every time I play this song because I get into character. I'm this guy, but I was so excited, and then I was like, and Andrew Wilson was like, he's from Washington.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was like, listen to this song. He's like, oh yeah, Rodeo Man. I'm like, he goes, no, if you play bars in the Northwest, you better know
Rodeo Man.
and I was like, oh really? Yeah. And so then I sent it to Cody Braun. I was so happy. Look, I recorded this, and it was twofold. I want to get on the Braun family reunion,
Right. You go to Idaho and hang out with them for a
show Dad this, and and he goes, oh, cool, yeah, we cut that, and I'm like, damn it. He said, oh yeah, we cut that on a live album, but don't worry, nobody ever heard it. And I was like I'd never heard it, but they have a live album that this song is already on. And I listen to it now, obviously, and pretty close. Similarities are uncanny in the way I record it. Mine was a little more Muzzy.
Yeah, it sounds like an old '50s ditty, I guess is the best way. You didn't change it, but what it sounds like is the original was AM and you turned it to FM.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's what I intended.
Yeah,
it was. how do I do this without being Muzzy?
Right.
How does Jarrod do this?
Tribute, not copy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this is.
I was proud of it, and I sent this to Chris Wall too, because you talk about Northwest. It's Chris. As much as you can say that with Texas, you say that
Right.
in Montana, Chris Wall, and he's like, "Oh, Muzzy's gonna love this," and I hope he does. I haven't spoken to any of them about it. If they have any bad feelings, don't tell me, please. Let's leave it as Muzzy's gonna love it, or invite me to Pocatello and Muzzy get up and play with me. That'd be awesome.
Hopefully.
Unless he stand on rodeo as much as he loves me. Someday soon, going with him someday soon.
Your duet with your wife someday soon.
Okay, the Cowboys falling in love now.
Yeah.
Again.
This song hit me because I'd forgotten about it, but this was right in my college days when Susie Bogus did it.
And that was the tough thing, because Jen said, I'm not Susie. And I said, I know. That's what's kind of cool, because, I'm not any of the guys that ever cut it before either. I probably, other than Susie's is probably the biggest cut.
But that's not how I know it.
Mo Bandy.
Well, I was going to say, I'm from Houston,
Yeah.
and when I was a kid, my mom and dad went to dance at the Winchester Club near Bel Air, where Mo Bandy and Joe Stampley.
Back when you used to have to tour all the small cities because there was no big internet.
Now, you could have made this whole album a Mo Bandy, Joe Stampley album and been just as fine.
Just as fine.
Mo Bandy does a version of this song that I think is awesome.
It's awesome. And that's what I told her. I said, you're hearing Susie, and I'm hearing Bandy, and I can't be him, but I don't want to be. I said, how would you and I approach this as a conversation about a cowboy? And and there was a Don Williams song called Rodeo Man. It was between that and this.
You could put a Don Williams song on here too.
But we had already done
Right.
the Don Williams duet on the last album. So, and I forgot who wrote the one that I was gonna cut. Oh God, very famous writer in country music. Anyway, so going back to the deal, I said, I want this to be a conversational duet between a cowboy and a girl that loves him. And again, she's confused. Does he love rodeo more than me? And he knows that that's not necessarily the truth. It's just a whole different. It's not comparable.
Right.
It's this is who I have to be, and I love you, and this is why you love me, is because it's who I have to be.
Right.
And to me, it was a no-brainer. And again, she's not a country artist. Jen's not a country artist. And I personally thought that that's what's cool about it, is that, again, it's our story, because, I got her living on a ranch, and she couldn't spell cow, She could really spell cow. That's another joke. That's a Garth Brooks line. But, so I have her singing to her cowboy, and there's so many that we could have done. Angel from Montgomery was another one that we had done together that would have fell right into this, but eventually got to pick one. And again, I'd done so many things that were obscure that I kind of felt, again, that it was time to do something in a way that you hadn't heard it, that was not so obscure.
And from this point of the album on, you pretty much start hitting the mark on less obscure songs.
Right.
You kind of climb the ladder.
That's where it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the first recognizable one since My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys, and I was like, oh, I know this song. I mean, and I had forgotten about it and she does such a great job of selling it that I thought, "Oh, Jen picked this song to put on the album." And I asked her that. She goes, "No, I didn't pick it." But
Yeah,
I like
she
it.
fought me. She fought me at first because again, she, as a woman, you think, my God, this was such a big hit for Susie,
Right.
and how do I? Because there's going to be some jackass that's well, she can't sing, Susie,
Sure.
and there's going to be some guys that, well, you can't sing like. I don't. That's not who we made it for.
Right.
We made our love story out of the song, and that's what it is.
It was,
Oh, sometimes I think about you and the way you used to ride out in your rhinestones and your sequins, the sunlight on your hat. Oh, the crown will always lie. But for me, I've come to know everything is not gold. Everything.
I think that the average fan that picks up this album that sees this title skips to this song, which is "Everything That Glitters." I am a huge Dan Seals fan. I went out of my way to go see him in concert many years ago. Ray John's my favorite song by his, but
yeah.
this is right up there with it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Another and the thing, he's a cowboy.
yeah.
Well, at least he's got off into, I will admit, I would not have. This is the last song I recorded on this album. I had everything done, and I went back for a specific reason, not to have somebody look at it and say,
What's missing?
I want a song I've heard. It's here and there. But I asked my fans on social media, said, if I cut a rodeo record, what 3 songs do you have to have? And I was shocked that this was like, the other ones you could tell, like somebody would say, you better cut 17, and
Right.
I know who they are. That
People that know you.
okay. But the people who say you better cut 17 also said everything that glitters. Now, the other people would say everything that glitters in Amarillo by Morning. But the cross that everybody said, you need to cut everything that glitters. And maybe it had something to do with that I had played it, and obviously in some of my dance shows,
Right.
I don't only do 90-minute concerts. I do 3-hour dances of my stuff and don't take breaks and like Johnny Bush, that's that hero right there in as far as playing
Right.
dance halls. And maybe it had a little bit to do with the people that heard me sing it or something. But again, like I said, Chris Wall had told me I had a guy. Everything he tries to teach me that I please, and he's like, I had a guy come up to me and say, I have a great idea for a record. Every song should start with B. And Chris did the same thing I'm doing right now and that you're doing. Like, what's the punchline there? There's not. To that guy, it was cool if everything started with B. And the point of that is just because it's important to you or doesn't, just because everything ought to be important, is that guy's opinion is as important as yours. And you're not the judge and jury of what's cool. My fans overwhelmingly said, cut everything that glitters. And so I went back and did it. And the strange thing about it, I'm not a single dad now. I'm not. But there was a point when I had empty nest syndrome and my older kids were out of the house and you have them by your own and this and that. I immediately felt that again with this song, and again, I'll never say that I had control of my kids and my ex didn't want anything. Never in my life would I say that. She's a great mom. But I will say I understand the separation issues that comes with this song, and the fact that my older kids might have felt this at some point, and might have blamed it on the music.
Right.
Where this girl is blaming it on rodeo, and her mom's the queen of the rodeo, and I immediately felt what this little girl's feeling, and like, God, I hope my older kids never felt that, but I'm sure they did at some point.
Right.
It's so I didn't know I had such a strong feeling for the song, and once I had that feeling and I sang it, I knew. It was
You had
okay.
to really connect to it.
It was okay then. You know what? Then I believed it. I believed not Dan, but I believed the little girl.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of where this point in the story is it's you know, sometimes was all that you fought for worth it? And you don't know. It's a unending question.
I'll say this is watching you last night. I mean, telling that story about your older kids. Watching you last night with Grace and River, and having Grace come up and sing "Silver Wings." You know, you just look at her and she walked up and
Oh yeah.
locked eyes and sang it like she was born to sing it.
That's what I hope so.
It just, and then watching your wife and River dance back there in the back during your songs, it just, that the story you just told connects to what you've learned in all of this.
I think God gave me another shot at it, and to ruin it would be, I'm very weary of running it and having this in my head. And the song really resonated to me once I really listened to it. Again, It was, it's too popular. I don't want to, Dan got all the credit for that. It's not something that, the rest of the people were kind of like underrated, underdogs. And Dan wasn't. Dan had, you know, that was a very, very popular song. And to touch it, there's your other thing. It's like, oh, he's not Dan Seals. He can't do the...
Again, tribute, not copy.
I don't want anybody to say that they did not believe me when I sing that. And
I have it written down there. You sell this song well.
That's all I wanted to do.
Right there. That, again, going back to my heroes, American Cowboys, it's ballsy to sing a song that everybody knows because you're going to get compared to the original artist. And that's so not what this album is. Yeah. It's not, none of the songs are you trying to be Waylon Jennings, Chris Ledoux, all these guys. It's Jarrod Birmingham's take on all of these songs, and it's just so apparent in every single one.
I hope so.
And it's especially on this one. I mean, again, I worried when I saw the recognizable songs that you're going to be compared.
Yeah.
And
it was a chance. I mean, and again, you know, you when I read the people listening to this album and they write stuff on social media, again, here we go. There's people, boy, I cannot believe you cut Running Through the Rain. and I'm like, cool. And most of those are like cowboy people that I know. Then the other side of it, again, here you go. People that aren't. I had a doctor text me last night, that good friend, but a doctor, not a cowboy, not anything. It's like, oh my God, I love what you did with Everything That Glitters in the next song and the one that's after this one and stuff like that, because they were recognizable, but yet I hope they didn't think I tried to knock it off, you know, and play it just like it. And so I think, in conclusion, that I accomplished what I did it for the fans, and it looks like that worked.
I took it.
He's addicted to danger. You're my be satisfied. Hooked on an 8-second ride.
This is kind of the climax for me of the album. When we're talking about,
And it really is.
we're hooked on an 8-second ride. The first time I've heard this before when younger and danced to it and all that kind of stuff, but the first time I connected with it, some kid was out here on the Shep stage a few 7-8 years ago.
I know who you're going to say because that was my band, and that's how they.
It's Cody Johnson did an encore of this song,
That was my encore.
and I just was like,
And I'm not
blown
saying
away.
Cody. I'm not saying Cody. He again, there's another cowboy that connected to the song, and it was so natural because all of you know my guys had played that with Cody.
Yeah.
And when I saw Cody doing that, and he goes, "You want to get up?" We sold out. We have the record at the Waller County Fair. He and I did a show there together, and he said, "You want to get up and do a song with me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Hooked on 8-second ride." I saw it on the encore list. He goes, "You know that?" And so I was like, "Oh yeah." And
I don't think there's a Chris Ledoux fan that
Yeah.
doesn't know the song inside out.
And with this song, it was the biggest struggle for me to put it on or not.
Yeah, I know why.
Because there's not another way to do it. Chris kicked it through the goalpost.
It's a metal track.
Yeah,
it
it
can
is.
be a metal song.
Sure.
A metal band could cover the song,
Yeah.
and
there was there was two deciding factors because I thought, man, how cliche. I'm gonna put Hooked on an 8-second ride or the Garth Brooks Rodeo, something.
Right.
To me, like my generation, that is the Garth Brooks Rodeo song
Well,
to the other generation.
I think this song, more than any other, changed the sound of country music
Sure.
into the Garth Brooks
Sure.
sound because it sounds like 1988. It sounds like it should be on the soundtrack to Top Gun.
Yeah.
And this is what allowed Garth and some of those 90 country
to go
artists
do what he did.
to do that.
I agree completely. And so it was a struggle with me because I knew some of my old cowboy friends were going to be like, dude, you had to go there. Not because they don't like it.
Right, because
because it's obvious.
Yeah.
And the rest of the album isn't obvious. And so I struggled and struggled and struggled. And there was two factors. There are 17 and 18-year-old kids out there that have not heard this.
Yep.
Okay? And I'm not saying that they're going to hear mine over Chris Ledoux's, but there's a chance. And if there's a chance, like your daughter or something, then I'm going to take it because it needs to carry on.
Yeah.
And my band said, if you do not let us do a version of this, then
Yeah.
I am not going to do the whole album.
This showcases Billy Joe.
Oh, the whole band.
And your drummer.
The drummer, yeah. Sammy was like, please, dude, let me. I said, okay, here's the catch. I'm coming in to sing. I'm out of here. When y'all have fun, do what you want to do. This is
This
your
unleashed
cookie.
your band. This
is your cookie. You take it and eat it. And when I listened to it, I was like, holy cow. Yeah, the album's, George Jones on Rodeo Bum to but over the last few albums, getting older, everybody's like, man, yeah, I love those albums. I'm just looking for that one that Jarrod, and so what they did is they had it in their mind that this, you can hear this stampede through it the whole time, and that's what they had in their mind. It's like this song to me is a crescendo of a stampede, and I was like, oh, cool. That's their people that aren't rodeo cowboys. That's their rendition
Right.
of a rodeo song, and it's so close to what Chris did anyway. It is. I mean, I can't not.
Again, it's updated. I mean, Chris's sounds like 1988. It's got the the electric guitars
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
got some synthesizers in there, I think.
Yeah.
Yours sounds like I don't want to say a country version, but it sounds like it's the same song, but without those screechy guitars and which it holds up.
Yeah.
With
I think you hear a little more of the eerie to them. Again, this was a stampede. This song's a stampede, and that whole eeriness that they kind of made in that, the whole way is I thought, that's cool, and if that's their feeling of a rodeo song, they deserve to be heard. Because I have had a number of people say, how cool and how Waylon Jennings is it that your band. I said, not only is it cool, it's fortunate, that's my traveling band.
Yeah.
And I'm, that's the old school way right there. We got in a room and that's, that's what them guys came out with. And again, it was a struggle, hard for me to listen to, because I don't want people to say, boy, Chris Ledoux guy did a Hooked on an 8-second ride, but I'm happy that I did it.
It's a great moment on the album
to have it there.
Again, my poll last night,
I could feel it when we started playing, even acoustically. When we started the, Billy starts the, the crowd immediately is like,
they all can't be waltzes. They all can't be waltzes or ballads.
Yeah.
You got to have.
And I'm good. It's the other side of the emotion of this record. It's not all here.
Yeah. It's a roller coaster. Yeah.
When you think of how many Cowboy songs are with a guy just down in the dumps and he had his whole life and he did da-da-da-da-da-da-da, there has to be an upside to that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can be said any better than that.
So there must be some place for old worn out cowboys, broken down pickers, dreamers like me.
Old Wore Out Cowboy, number 12 on the album. This is kind of the conclusion of the album. This is an Ed Bruce song.
Yes.
If we're talking Cowboys, there's nobody that looks more like a cowboy in the world than Ed Bruce.
Yeah.
Ed Bruce puts the Marlboro Man to shame when it comes to looking cowboy.
He does. And again, I did not. This was not a song that was a part of my fabric to begin with. Mm-hmm. But when I was writing this novel, this story, and this album, I went to look for an Ed Bruce song. And I like to throw curveballs, and I did it on the last one with Running on Empty. But I like to throw curveballs, and when I was searching for Ed Bruce, could have been obvious choices to do Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. And but you know what I went to look for? When I went to look for it, I was gonna do When I Die, I may not go to heaven. I don't know if they let cowboys in, and that was going to be in the middle.
You would have been compared to Tanya Tucker every time you sang it.
But most people don't know that's an Ed Bruce song. So I was going to say a cowboy wrote this and yada yada, but I ran across this one and immediately remembered it. I remembered it. I mean, I know Ed Bruce like the back of my hand. And
this came out a few years after Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, I felt this song. The reason I didn't gravitate to it early, like I did, like This Is the Last Cowboy Song and some of those, that was my plot in life at that point. Now, I have 27 plates in my face. Both shoulders are pinned. I have a fake knee. Have broken not every bone, but every type of bone in my body. You talk about also, I can't like carry my kids upstairs if it's first thing in the morning, but I love it. I love that I lived enough to feel that.
Right.
And Jen doesn't
That's a powerful statement.
Jen doesn't get that a lot. She's like, "Oh, baby, I feel so bad for you." I was like, "Don't. I earned this," and I felt that side of it. But yet, the music again too. I've played on every continent but Antarctica, and I've been worn out that way too. And when you talk about two worlds colliding, that's this song, and that's what it is. This is the guy. The first verse is the cowboy. The second verse is the musician. Yeah. And I think we feel that. I felt it immediately that this is. But I don't want it to be misconstrued as that I'm sad about it. I don't think Ed meant to be sad about all this stuff. I think he's talking about it, but he's also looking for that where the jukebox is playing Hank Williams for free. That's still happy. Yeah. And so there's not, I think it's a deserved retirement is what I see it as. And I think, I don't know, but I think that's what Ed was doing with this song. And I loved it. The funny thing, in retrospect, I played it in a bar in Dallas, and somebody came up when I was just trying to get familiar with it again, and somebody came up later and said, "Man, I love what you did with that Ward Davis song." And I was so confused because I don't know Ward personally. I know who Ward is, but I don't know him personally. And but Cody Jinks, very good friend. I was a champion for Cody before people were champions for Cody, and I know Cody thinks a lot of him, and they're close, and vice versa. And he goes, the Ward Davis and Jamie Johnson cover you did. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
Which one?
And he goes, the Cowboy deal. And here I go. I'd already cut this song. And here I go again. Like somebody cut it. Somebody cut this. And the funny thing about it is now is when we all get together, we don't have to guess which song we're going to play.
Have song.
Yeah, we know what song. If we ever wind up around each other, you know what we're going to play for you.
Well, the reason I thought this was such a brilliant choice to wrap up the story was you could have really easily picked "Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys." Mm-hmm. That was kind of the obvious choice. By choosing this song, it actually references that song. It's got the lyric in the song. Yeah. And when I heard it, I thought, well, you cleverly changed it. And then I went back and listened to the original, and it was actually the original lyric.
Jukebox is playing Williams for free, and they're never alone, always, even with someone.
I thought that was a brilliant.
And I think that was again. I think it was for me. I think that the song to him meant an earned retirement. Yeah. And he's referencing "Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys" because you're an old, worn out cowboy. And I again, it just home run for me. It was no question that I wasn't going to put this on an album. I'll tell you the coolest thing so far before we close with this song is that I had someone. Again, I'm not going to bastardize it by saying their names because this is personal. But a country artist that I love and respect and look up to texted me and said, I think it's so cool. The album is so cool because I look up to you because you can pull it off. He said, if I sang this album, it would be, but you lived this. And I'm like, yes, that's when you go to Nashville, and I tried to change who I was. I tried to hide the cowboy as much as I could, and all the my management team and yada yada, they're like, oh God, gold mine, we have a cowboy that I can, and I tried to hide it. And again, I grew my hair out and I let the little long hair, every cowboy has, likes a little bit of rock and roll, the Chris Ledoux, but I went
Deep into
it, buddy. Not in a bad way. I was always a cowboy. It was just that I didn't want to be pigeonholed as a cowboy. And looking back now, that's why did Waylon Jennings cut the first album of 12 Billy Joe Shaver songs? They all wanted to be, a part of them, as much as you look up and look, they all feel, man, I really look up to you because you do have 27 plates in your face and on and on. It's not a vanity thing that I'm like, well, yeah, I should be looked up to. But all of a sudden it was like,
you have that
I
responsibility.
realized, I had the responsibility to do this, to say I can do this because I did. It's me, and I'm not hiding it. It was kind of like the addiction process and how much I talk about. I blatantly talk about being an addict, and because I think if I hide it, then it doesn't help anybody else. There's other cowboy kids that are coming up that it's okay to be you and just be you. And it was time to talk about it.
Yeah.
What do you do when all you've ever done is moving on without you, and before you know it, it's gone? Try and tell the cowboy it's time to let go, when holding on is all he's ever known.
So we're going to get to the last song on the album, which is written by some old wore-out cowboy. It is a cover of a previous. Jarrod Birmingham's the writer of this song.
Yeah, I covered this one probably better than I covered any of them in the song.
Now, I asked you last night, because it bugged me when I heard the song. I listened to it 4 or 5 times. There's spoken word in this, and it's so well done. And I'm like, okay, that's some really, really, like, I thought Tough Hedeman or some cowboy that I don't know. And then you come in singing, and I'm like, there's Jarrod. And then I ask you, who's the spoken voice on the album?
Yeah, it's me. It is an old cowboy.
I listened to it again last night, and I can hear you now. But did you? You just sound different on there in a good way. But
well, again, different time in my life. Because we thought, well, should we recut this? So many people do that. So many people say, I'm going to take this song and I'm going to give it to you like I feel it now. There was nothing. I feel the same now as I did then, and it would have been anything I did now would have taken away from what I really at that point. That song was every bit in me, but again, it was a struggle because, man, should I do this? Because here I go. I didn't realize that I'd been writing rodeo songs before that on other albums that weren't so obvious. You go back and I had Convict Cowboy on one of the old and Let's Get It On it was really a cowboy song on that other. That's what it was. And I'd kind of hinted at it, but this was the first full-blown resonation. This is me, and so I said, no, we're not cutting it. That is me at that point, and I don't think I'll ever feel again the way I did about that song when I cut it. If I do it now, I'm just going to lack the enthusiasm, and I
heard that too.
So we put it. Exactly, we just took the track, moved it over, and it fit. And it was the closing chapter to this album.
in many brilliant choices on this album, I think, to help tell the story and kind of connect the things. This, to me, I said 17 is my favorite. This may be my favorite just because of, Holding On, the way you bridge rodeo and music with this song, it's the same story.
Yeah.
That, you're out rodeoing, you're out playing shows, you're missing your family.
Mm-hmm.
You do it because you have to. It's who you are, as opposed to you want to balance both. You can hear the influences of everybody on this album in this song, especially
Sure.
Chris Ledoux with the spoken word. I think when I was listening to it, I thought of, you mentioned your conversation with Ned. I think if Chris were alive today and heard this, I think he would have been just so proud that somebody has taken what he did and turned it into their own.
I think that would be my underlying hope on that song. It's again, you definitely can see the influence.
Oh yeah,
and it wasn't intentional. It was again, that was me talking. This was me going in to the biggest studio in Nashville with Billy, and the day before I just sat outside, and I probably hadn't cried in like 10 years before that. And me and him be like, Billy grew up in laundromats, and I was nothing, and here we are in the biggest studio and staying in the not the penthouse, but the
really nice room.
The nice room. They don't have penthouses at this hotel, but we were top floor, and they woke me up that morning and said, "No, our studio time started. You're getting down here." And that was the first song that day. And again, the band, if you listen to it, the band that's playing on that one is also the same band who cut "A Dream Is Like a River, Ever Changing As."
Wow.
They're playing on Garth's All That. And when you listen to the production on that and go back and listen to the other, to The River, I didn't want to change it because JT has since passed away, the coveted Nashville musician, A-Team. And here I am, this little guy playing a cowboy song with that band.
Wow.
And I'd already made an ass of myself the day before, and the producer had quit, and here the A-Team is still there with me for some reason. And it told a story. It was very important. This is about three cowboys all rolled into one. And I was at the funeral of one of those the other day, this year, right in March, standing with the son of the other one that had already passed away. And the son of the other one, which he's in his 60s now, walks up to me and says, "You know that song you wrote about my dad?" And this guy is like, the guy that's telling me this, the son, I'm half scared of him. I've seen him jump out of a helicopter onto a cow because the cow would not go back to the pens. And here this guy is getting teary-eyed telling me, "I want you to know that song you wrote about my dad." And he looked at me and he didn't know what to say, and I didn't know what to say, but we both knew what he was saying, and he turns around and walks off. True stories. The first guy rode broncs until his 50s. The other one, a Mexican cowboy that could barely speak English, that practically raised me, and I can see him in my mind today still rolling cigarettes at full speed on a horse, chasing cows and getting on bulls backwards. This is a cowboy. And the other man, Mr. Hinkie, honestly got out of the side door of the truck in house shoes. And I didn't really think too much about it, and walked over to his horse and got on the horse in house shoes. And I'm like, whoa! And they said, well, he's having some problems with his feet, and he never got down. Now, in retrospect, knowing being an older guy now, I was thinking back then as a kid he outworked us. Now as an older guy, I know once you get up, you can't get down off a horse. So I wished I didn't know that, but and so I wrote that. I rolled those three influences, and I still believe it to this day that the hook in this song about try and tell a cowboy it's time to let go when holding on is all he knows. It's you die. There's a part of you that dies when you can't do the things you did at 24. And it's an early death for a cowboy. I can't do those things anymore. And that part of you literally dies and you become another person. And that's what this song was to me. It's about that, and it's musically too.
And I get that about the music. I'm related
like
to the
last
music
night,
business.
I asked that girl, "Do you know who Roger Staubach is?" The 15-year-old. No. Do you know
Dave
who John?
Ryan's daughter,
Do you know
yeah.
who John Elway is? No.
but
my point is that everything has a time,
right.
and they've been trying to, with PETA and a number of people that don't understand the cowboy life, have been trying to push it to the back burner, and it's never more prevalent than it is now. I mean, there's talks, and I'm not going to get political, but there's talks in the some of the senators about banning farming because of the gas emissions from cows and yada yada. The people that just don't understand and what made America
Right.
was this type of people, not necessarily cowboys, but pioneers that hardshipped to make what we are now. And if we had just a touch of that, then I don't think we'd be in the situation we are now. So that's where this song is.
This song has so many themes that you can attribute to it. I mean, and you just everything just kind of is connected.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the song. It again, I wouldn't change anything about it. I've written a lot more that I'm gonna start putting back into my albums. They didn't belong here.
Right.
It would have been me trying to sell rodeo songs with the old covers, and that's not. I'm not gonna do it. I'll sell those rodeo songs independently.
Well, I can't tell you how appreciative I am to sit down and talk to you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for looking into that and reading it.
I just enjoy the album. I'm grateful for every time you show up here.
I promise Ronnie will have me many times this year. I promise you. That's my buddy, and this is my town.
And I'll fight to get here each and every time.
Thank you.
And appreciate everything. And,
Thank y'all for listening so long and putting up with us.
Yes, sir. We'll wrap it up. For Steve Peters and Jarrod Birmingham. And thank you to Lori Peters back here on production
Thanks.
for running the
Always,
cameras. And
women run everything. I promise you. Not run. Run. They do.
she's responsible for making sure everything's recorded.
No, they do.
So,
They do. I admit it. I'm man enough to admit that.
for Steve and Jarrod, so long, Texas.
Thank you so much.
He's been beat up, banged up, and mashed to the ground. He's been on top a time or two. From Cheyenne, Calgary to Houston, he made them all before he was through. He still talks about the bad ones. That twinkle in his eye. He knows that he's got to take a break, but his heart still wonders why. What do you do when all you've ever done is moving on without you, and before you know it's gone? Try and tell the cowboy time to let go. When holding on is all he's ever known. Now there's house shoes in the stirrups, boots and servers used to fit. He'd been in that saddle for 70 years. Little sore feet wouldn't make him quit. We worked all day penning cattle in that hot August sun. And every time us kids stopped to take a break, that man said, I think I'm just right on, boys. What do you do when all you've ever done moving on without you, and before you know it's gone? Try and tell the cowboy it's time to let go. When holding on is all he's ever known. What do you do when all you've ever done is moving on without you, and before you know it, it's gone? Try and tell the cowboy it's time to let go. When holding on is all he's ever known. They've been trying to kill off us cowboys for 100 years or so. He's still riding high, just holding on. That's all he knows. Thanks for listening, Facebook. Thanks. The album's called The Short Go. You go download it. See if we can get a little high. Thanks for tuning in, Peter. Thanks, Mom. We're going to Disney World.